Welcome to Therapeutic Intentions Podcast. My name is Stephanie Dingbaum. I am a mental health therapist, and I am so passionate about all things health and wellness, personal development, and empowering others to be their most authentic and best versions of themselves. Here at Therapeutic Intentions, we are all about having intentional and authentic conversations on whole body health, healing practices, mindset, and ways to uplevel your life so you can truly be the best version of you. If you are a woman, a mom, hope to someday be a mom, a healer, or just in a place where you want to start prioritizing yourself and your health, then this podcast is for you. I am so glad you're here. If you're ready, let's get to it. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Therapeutic Intentions Podcast. You guys, I am so excited for today's episode. This is one of the first collabs that I'm sharing with you, and I'm so excited about it. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but first I just want to give you some background information. So I met Zoe literally like maybe 4 weeks ago. So I attend this, it's called Female Girl Power Group. It's just a bunch of female entrepreneurs. We meet once a month here in Eastern Iowa area. And I was lucky enough. She just happened to sit by me. And at the end of the event, we kind of just hit it off, got to talking about what we do and the similarities between what we do and our services that we provide to clients. And I left there thinking, I need to know this girl. I need to get to know her more. So I just totally reached out, see if she'd be open to doing a collab with me on the podcast. And here we are. So I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about how we met, but I am going to pass the mic over to her and just let her give her bio and what she does.
Yay. Hi, guys. This is the first time I'm on a podcast. This is so interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be super fun. So Stephanie and I met, like she said, at the group, and it's super interesting because I think I had told you when we were talking that a week prior to that, I was thinking about starting my own podcast, but I was like, I don't think I have enough time, or I just wasn't fully in it. And then when I found out that you were interested, I was like, wow, divine timing.
There you go.
I'm here today. I think we're going to talk mostly about the nervous system and whatnot, because I do practice chiropractic. So we'll get into a lot of that, but it's really interesting. I used to introduce myself like, oh yeah, I'm a chiropractor and da-da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. But recently I've been just noticing that that's just a part of what I do. And for a long time, I've really kind of made that my identity, I was in school for so long, it felt eternal. And I'm still pretty fresh into practice. I've been out in practice for almost 3 years now, I think, but that's still pretty baby, relative. And I feel like I'm really beginning to realize just, that I'm so many other things other than that. So I think the adjective I would like to use is probably just creative. I'm a creative. I love to create art, whether it's through the form of chiropractic or crocheting, making bread, just anything that's going to get me in touch with my creativity. And
absolutely.
Just, a slow, intentional life is what I'm here for.
Beautiful. I love that. And I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys. Zoe is very much a free spirit, and I think that's what attracted me to her. She just has this spiritual energy about her, and I hope that comes through today. But she's just an amazing individual. And you mentioned you're a chiropractor, obviously. Why don't you share with the listeners kind of what got you into chiropractic care and what you practice today?
Yes. So I feel like, as cliche as it might sound, it was just a lot of little steps that led me to where I'm supposed to be. I feel like it really is one of, and if not maybe my main purpose in life, is to practice chiropractic. And so kind of starting from the beginning, I guess, I knew that I always wanted to help people. I wanted to do something within the realm of health, art, or, I think art therapy was the first one that I was going to do, but then I decided against it because I was taking an art class in school and I loved it, but Like you said, I have a very free spirit. I don't like to be told what to do, sometimes to a fault.
Sure.
I don't like schedules all the time, like structures, like
Big Brother telling you when you have to work and
which sometimes that's necessary. Like I'm learning balance with that.
Sure.
But at the time I was like, I don't want to go to art school where I have to create art that they're telling me to make.
Yes.
Like I don't care about this style or whatever. And I knew that I would, or like the history of it, just all of like the little nitty gritties. I was like, I love art, but do I want to make this career or like my job?
Yeah,
you know,
that's fair. Yeah.
So then I went to pediatric psychology because I love kids, and then realized that I think now I would be able to hold more space for that. But again, at the time, I was like, I'm way too emotional for this. I feel like I would like listening to these children's troubles, like would just be so heart-wrenching. So I decided, okay, maybe not that. And then stumbled upon physical therapy.
Okay.
I went through a really big like gym rat phase where I was just really into being in the gym, working out, lifting weights. And I feel like physical therapy, at least my perception of it at the time, kind of like melded with that. Like there's a lot of exercises and muscles and whatever. So I was going to undergrad for that, and some friends within that physical therapy course switched over to chiropractic, and that piqued my interest. Started going because when I was finishing up undergrad, I was with a guy at the time who was in chiropractic school. And that's when I was like, you know what? This seems really interesting. I was shadowing my cousin who's a PT for 4 months. And the most excited that I had been that entire 4 months was when she had done a side posture, sort of looked like an adjustment.
Okay.
And this woman who had come in with debilitating pain for like 2+ years, 80% of her pain was gone. And I was so intrigued by that and the hands-on. I was like, that looks fun. And that's more chiropractic than PT. So, and don't come at me, PT. I don't know.
Yeah. No judgment.
But I was like, I feel like you see a lot more of that in chiropractic. And so, I decided to switch my major over to chiropractic, and then I would travel a couple hours, like twice a week, to go to seminars before I could even start chiropractic school. And there was a doc there that I was really inspired by, and ultimately that's why I chose to go to Palmer. Because it's like, I'm going to be an intern for him. I'm going to do this. But it's just so funny how life changes and like the plans just do not. I feel like the purpose of that doctor and that experience was to just get me to Palmer. But then once I got there and my perception started shifting around what I wanted to do around that doctor himself, and I was like, all right, I don't want to be an intern for him, but I do know that I want to practice chiropractic. And it's very interesting because there is spectrum is the word I'll use. Or maybe like a polarity. I don't know the right word, but on one side you have like there's the philosophical aspect of chiropractic. Sure. The 33 principles about, what chiropractic is and the philosophy of life, essentially. Okay. And then on the other hand, you have like evidence-based chiropractic. I do believe you can have both. But oftentimes sides fight. Right. And the philosophy side, I think, is viewed as very woo-woo by the evidence-based side. And the philosophy side looks at the evidence-based side like they're not woo-woo enough. At least in my opinion, in my experience. But there's totally room for both. And there are chiropractors that, practice both. And I think that's great. But in the beginning of school, I've always felt like I was meant to be a spiritual person ever since I was a child. Like I remember I grew up as a Catholic. So going to church, every Sunday, being at least around God. And I remember also being very pulled towards like Buddhism and being intrigued by it. Interesting. But I always thought that I could never do it. I was like, this is really cool, but it's not me, Sure. In chiropractic, I felt this resistance within me. Like my brain was telling me, okay, I'm going to school to be a doctor. There's no room for spirituality and being a doctor was what I was telling myself. Sure. But chiropractic really was founded on like spirituality and
Really?
science coming together. It's bringing man, the spiritual, and man, the physical together is what the founder said. And basing it around tone and like the energy of your spine and your whole existence. But I didn't know that at the time. And so I was really resisting it for the first like year and a half. I felt like I was supposed to be doing this thing, but was just really resisting it.
Isn't it funny, like those stories we tell ourselves in our head and how we start to believe those stories. And then we think like, no, that doesn't match with the story I'm telling myself. Those are powerful experiences. Yes.
Totally. Yeah. I'm really just invalidating myself. And finally I was just burnt out. Didn't know how I wanted to practice, like really who I was as a chiropractor, which is so normal when you're a student. I mean, even now,
I think so too.
You know, it's so common. Honestly, I feel like nobody knows what they're doing. We talked about that the other day.
Yeah, when we first got together.
I went to a seminar.
Yes.
And my whole life changed. Like, I feel like, yes, life is all these little things that build up to get you to where you are. But looking back, I feel like I can really pinpoint the exact moment where my life could have continued on this one trajectory and it just didn't. It went the complete opposite way. And it was like, no, you're aligned now. Like you are aligned with your purpose.
Goosebumps. Yes.
And it was at this seminar and I was like, holy shit.
We swear here. It's okay.
Oh yeah. And it's like, wow, this is what chiropractic is. Like bursting my heart open.
Cool.
And really, I don't want to say that it's the first time I experienced real love, because I mean, I feel like that's a slap in the face for my parents and like other people that love me. But I think that it's the first time I was able to actually fully feel it and receive it since I was a child. You know, when we're children, like we're just these sponges and we're so sensitive and we're always soaking up everything until, you know, we kind of learn we don't know how to process it sometimes. Sure. So we just totally shut down and close off to everything. And so I feel like at that seminar, my heart finally broke open.
Wow.
And I remember for days after that, I was like sobbing and just tears of joy, tears of sadness, just so many tears that just needed to come out. Yeah. Having all these realizations around just myself, the relationship that I had with my older brother at the time. And it was super healing.
That sounds so powerful.
Super healing.
Wow.
And that got me on the trajectory towards Network Spinal, because then a friend, once I was more curious about this more heart-based, neurological-based chiropractic, my friend was like, come to this club, come to Network Spinal Club. It's right up your alley. And for about a year, I resisted Network Spinal.
Wow.
Okay. It's so interesting. I don't know if this is true for every Network Spinal doc, but it's a very common theme that I've run across where it's like, you resist it. In my head, I'm like, no, the spine needs to be adjusted.
Right.
Physically with the bone, there needs to be movement for something to happen, you know? And I went to club every week because I just felt this knowing inside. Like, even though my head was still resisting a little bit, I was like, no, I just knew that I had to keep going back.
Yeah.
And after about a year of going to club, because Network Spinal, I'll get into it in a little bit, but it's very, very gentle. On the outside looking in, it looks like not a whole lot is happening.
Sure.
It looks like you're just kind of like poking a person around their spine.
Okay. So just like gentle touch.
Super gentle touch.
Okay.
Yes. And I went to club for that whole year and was basically being practiced with. And I had experienced, you know, some of the breath waves and some of the things that, you know, we'll talk about in a bit. But finally, I just had this thought of, okay, you know what? I need to go actually see the doctor that's teaching club as a client and experience what an actual true entrainment is from a doctor that practices this. Because for the longest time, I had this naive perception that, oh, it's just gentle touches, so it's super easy, so I don't need to go see him. Club is enough. You know, which could not be farther from the truth. It's like
such a thing. Like when you're green and very much like learning it, I think we all tell ourselves those things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And so I went and saw him, and wow, one entrainment. Crazy. I can still remember that entrainment to this day.
That's so cool. That's amazing. But for those listeners that don't know, can you explain what entrainment means?
Yes. So typically we call the adjustment, an adjustment with chiropractic when you're thinking about traditional chiropractic.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we call it an entrainment with Network Spinal is because we are training the nervous system to learn new strategies and new patterns for moving through life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what that means is, think of your nervous system like the operating system of your phone. If we were an iPhone or something.
Yeah.
The way your entire life is structured on a cellular level, digestion, involuntary things, all the way up to the way we perceive things around us, the way we choose to interact and either react or respond to them. All of that information on how to do those things is in the nervous system.
Okay.
So we get it from our parents growing up.
Yep.
We get it from the people that we surround ourselves with because our nervous systems are always conversating with each other.
Sure. So I assume you can also get it from like traumatic experiences in your childhood, not just traumatic, but like those core memories, like we hold that in our nervous system, I would assume.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
yep.
Absolutely. And that's why generational trauma and generational healing is a thing. I feel like nowadays I hear a lot of people talking about the generational trauma, and especially parents. They're like, I'm so worried that I'm going to mess up my kid.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a lot of pressure. But I love to remind people of the generational healing.
Yes.
Too. That
I agree.
If we look back at the way, our parents were raised and their parents were raised. I mean, I can't speak for everyone's experience, but I know for mine, and I'd hope for most people's, it gets just a little bit better. Even if it's just a small bit,
right.
We're breaking those patterns.
Yeah.
And I think that's another common theme that I'm seeing. It's like, oh, we're the pattern breakers, we're the healers of the,
Those are my ideal clients. Anybody that wants to be a cycle breaker, I'm like, I'm here for it. Come to me.
Yes. So we learn all these things and how to process it, because our nervous system is our processing system. When we have information that comes in, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like when I say information, like reading a book or something, but even just the warm sun on your skin or someone looking at you or, just anything that your body is going to take in as information to your nervous system.
Okay.
And your nervous system has to process it because it's, it has to go somewhere. It doesn't just like dissipate into thin air. So it either can process it and integrate it, or if it doesn't have the strategies to process, it will store it.
Okay.
So that's why, when we just were talking about traumas happening in childhood, for example, not to focus on that aspect, but why it gets stuck.
Right.
Because especially as a child, like you don't have the strategies to deal with these big things.
The brain is still developing. It might not know even how to process that kind of a situation. Hence why we tend to suppress certain memories or emotions. Yes. Yeah.
Totally. So to take it a step further, we don't have those strategies, so we store it, because to your body, the nervous system is like, all right, I don't know what to do with this right now. But in the future, if I can go back when I do have the strategies, integrate it, kind of like delayed processing, and then integrate it and we can move on. But what happens is people get stuck because we don't know how to go back and process it. So instead, we just keep packing on all of these experiences, and they could be a bunch of little experiences. It could be little ones and big. Like, we're so complex as human beings.
Yes.
It could even just be, I have so much going on that I can't even go to the store and pick up the milk today. And so like I'm storing that,
Right.
And there's not always a story with it, but it's essentially the bandwidth that you have to process, right? And if all of the things that are going on exceed that bandwidth, everything over that's going to get stored.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yep.
And so that's what Network Spinal does. And that's what the entrainment does, is it goes back and teaches your nervous system through these gentle touches, these new strategies to process those experiences. That way you can move through life with a greater bandwidth, which will create more ease and more peace in your life. Because if your plate is bigger to hold all of the stuff, then it's not so full, like we might not, sometimes, yes, it's getting rid of things and taking it off the plate that we realize this is not a priority. Yeah. I don't need to allocate my energy to this.
Yes.
But there's also the component of, okay, well, what if I just want a bigger plate? What if I want to do all these things, but right now I just don't have the bandwidth? So using these entrainments is a way to increase that bandwidth so you have the energy and the capacity and the strategies to do more and live more life.
Beautiful. That is a really good way of explaining what you do.
Thanks.
And I'm very intrigued. Full transparency, I haven't done a session yet, but it's on my to-do list. So hold tight and I will share my experience with you in a future session, hopefully. But I'm just curious. So for those listeners that are interested in something like this, what does a typical session look like?
Yeah, so it's about 5 to 15 minutes, depending.
Wow.
It's super fast.
Okay.
Relative, to all these big ideas that we're talking about. It doesn't take a whole lot because your nervous system is kind of like a touch screen. And your back is like a touch screen. So these really gentle touches held with a very specific intention, done at a specific depth, at a specific place along the spine, tells the brain exactly what we're trying to teach it.
Okay. Wow.
Yes.
Is there debriefing that happens afterwards, or typically does it just depend?
Can you rephrase, what do you mean by debriefing?
Like if something comes up emotionally during the actual touch, do you encourage them to process that while they're there with you, or
whatever they need in that moment?
Okay.
Honestly.
So kind of meeting them where they're at.
Totally.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Sometimes people will get off, and I love to ask them, what are you noticing in this moment? Because the first, it's different for everybody, but the first, 20 or so visits is really reconnecting them to their bodies.
Cool.
We all live in our brains so much nowadays. We're think
so disconnected.
Yes, very disconnected. Which, the world, there's so much chaos going on.
Yeah.
So I don't blame anybody for being disconnected.
No, it's just the way our society is. Yeah.
Yes. So I love asking them, what do you notice in your body right now? What are you noticing in this moment? And sometimes they'll share more if they feel like they want to, or it's because the entrainment will continue to integrate for a few days.
Okay.
And when they come back, sometimes they'll notice more. Like, hey, I noticed this throughout my week. I had one client that was like, I noticed that when I was doing, she owns a business. She's like, when I was doing my tasks at the end of the day, typically she would see all the tasks, get super overwhelmed with all of it, and just be anxious and tense. But she's like, this week I actually noticed that I just looked at the task and just started with the first one and just was like, this is what we have to do. So that's a perfect example for how her bandwidth to hold all of that increased, because if you have the bandwidth to do it, it's not going to be overwhelming because you just think, it's just something I have to do, just like any other small task. But if we already have a full bandwidth, or our bandwidth is just, not as large to hold all that, then we see that list of things and we're like, oh, damn.
Right.
This is a lot. And we get overwhelmed.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's awesome to hear that. I feel like, in my line of work, and not to compare the two, but in my line of work, I'm always reminding clients, you're a healer too, so you can definitely relate to this, I'm sure. But I'm always reminding clients, the healing journey is not a linear journey. It's I named my practice wave healing therapy for that reason, because it's the highs and the lows, right? And so in your journey, can you relate to that? Do you feel like you're having to remind your clients of that? Or do you feel like it's pretty straightforward when they come to you and they heal within so many sessions? I feel like you can never say you're fully healed, right? There's always going to be other things that might come up, but how do you explain that to your clients?
Yeah. So personally, I'll answer that question first.
Yes.
No, it is not a straightforward line. I think for a long time, I tried to make it that way.
Can we just say, as entrepreneurs, the pressure, especially when somebody's private paying you, the pressure to okay, I have an hour. I'm always okay, I have an hour. Hopefully they walk out with some kind of an aha moment. Otherwise, I feel like I failed as a practitioner.
Yeah.
That pressure is a real thing.
That pressure is a real thing.
Yes.
And I feel like for me, when that comes up, and that's come up so much. I mean, I just opened my business back in August.
Okay.
I practiced for 2 years prior to this in a private family practice, practicing a little bit of network spinal within it, but mainly adjust like the traditional chiropractic of adjusting bones. And that business was around for 35 years, high volume. So the scarcity of like people coming back or not wasn't necessarily there for me.
Okay.
But now opening up my own business, that's come up a lot.
Yeah.
And for me, ultimately what that is like my own worthiness as a person and as a facilitator of healing.
Oh, I agree.
You know,
Yeah.
and really trusting. And we had talked a little bit about the aha too, like realizing that there doesn't always have to be this big aha moment. And so communicating that with my clients.
Yes, same.
Celebrating the small things where it's like, oh yeah, I actually slept really good that night, but that's all I noticed. That's huge. Awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so really, finding that and continuing to do the inner work of like, okay, why am I scared if they don't come back? Where does that come from? And just kind of allowing that fear to be there. I think even for myself, up until recently, I think there's this new wave of healing that's emerging for myself and just a new depth of welcoming any and all emotions to come through.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I know for me, I feel like every few days I'm like different emotionally. And there was quite a while where I was like trying to, fix it. And that was showing up in my business too. And when I see my clients and, logically I understood that I'm not fixing anybody. And I'll tell people that when they come in, I'm not going to fix you because you're not broken. You're a whole human being.
Preach, Zoe. Yes, I agree.
But then underneath it all, I'm like subconsciously trying to fix their problem. Yes.
Right. But I like the words when we last got together. I like the words you used about, like you said, I'm not here to fix you, but to help you adapt. That has really stuck with me in my own business and with my own clients. I think that's huge.
Yeah, totally. And that's really what chiropractic is all about. And the nervous system is adaptability and resilience, because we have very, very little control over our present circumstances. Like there is things that we can't control, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately life is so unpredictable. So it's not necessarily about trying to control it and control our emotions and trying to change it into something that we deem good enough for us. But how can we create an internal environment that is so resilient and adaptable so that we don't have to control, we can just surrender and we can just allow whatever experience that's coming up, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, to just trust that as exactly what we need and to find the tools and learn the strategies needed to be able to be with the thing.
That is beautiful. Yes. Surrender just keeps coming up in my life. So it's funny that you even said that word. That's like, if we're going to be like Swifties, that is the era I'm in. It's like, this is my era of just complete surrendering, contentment, finding contentment wherever I'm at. Yeah.
So huge.
It is. And one of the initial things that really drew me to Zoe was the fact that almost like, I would say 98% of my clients suffer from some form of anxiety. So when you mentioned the nervous system and regulating the nervous system for part of what you do, I was like, okay, I need to get to know this girl. Like my clients could really benefit from this. So if you aren't aware as a listener, so the nervous system is where we store, it controls so many different parts of us, obviously, but it's where that anxiety, which is that fight or flight, is stored. And so learning to, I don't want to say heal, but learning to address that, whatever that core memory or core fear or trigger is for the anxiety, is huge. But I feel like, with my clientele, it's twofold. Like, I feel like you need to do the mindset part of it. But then if we're talking about getting underneath to that root cause, the mindset and then what you do, that nervous system regulation.
Yeah. Like the
it's
body.
such a bit, yeah, it's such a big piece of the puzzle that I feel like as therapists, honestly, if I had met with you, I don't even think I would have come to that conclusion. So that's super powerful. What you do helps not just the emotional health of individuals, but I feel like it also helps with the spiritual health. I feel like it also helps with the physical health. Like there's so many different parts of a person that you're supporting. That's an amazing, like you had said, you wanted that spiritual aspect in what you do. Do you feel like you're finally in this like aligned place with your job?
100%. Yes. I think it will continue to change, just like little things.
Naturally.
Yes. And just the way my business is structured. But at the end of the day, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I'm so grateful to be here. Like just the gratitude. Not every day is easy, but then again, like I didn't sign up for an easy life, you know, I signed up to live it like for a full life, you know?
Yes.
And and I would love to touch, okay, so when you had talked about anxiety and that fight or flight.
Yep, go ahead.
It's so fascinating to me because up until probably earlier this year, I hadn't thought about it a whole lot. But fight or flight, I think, is viewed almost as like the bad guy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do agree. Yeah.
And that's totally not true. I just think that we get stuck. It's a very common place for people to be stuck nowadays, especially in the West. And in the work, go, can't sit still, hustle, grind. Yes. Where, you know, like team no sleep is like a badge of honor.
It is.
Yes. So of course, being stuck in that all the time, yes, it would be deemed as like, this is bad.
Yeah.
But I would love to remind people that that's also what enables people to take action too and to change.
True.
It's just, do we have the stability and the safety to hold it? Because when we get stuck in fight or flight, it gets exhausting. And then, you know, we burn out.
Yes.
We find ourselves, you know, totally in like a dorsal vagal.
Right. Because I feel like when we're burnt out, we're so disconnected from that authentic version of ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. I'm not an expert on polyvagal theory, but I do know a little bit about it. And that dorsal vagal, just for anyone that doesn't know what that is like the giving up part. So, and it's physically located on the more backside.
Oh, okay.
And then there's the ventral vagal, which is more like stomach side.
Okay.
And it's so interesting to me the way posture relates to your nervous system.
Here I am, like sitting up straight now. Like you mentioned posture, like okay, be aware, Stephanie.
No, I mean same. Like when you look at animals, for example, and they're running away with their tail tucked between their legs, it's not like this animal is consciously telling itself, "I'm scared, I'm going to tuck my tail." It's just the shape that their nervous system takes when they're in that state of fight or flight or running away or whatever. And humans are no different. We're animals too. We have a nervous system.
Yes.
So it's so interesting. Dorsal vagal is, think of like the fetal position almost, where you're like really hunched over. That's the shape of kind of just like giving up. And then if we move, I don't want to say up, but kind of over into then more that fight or flight, that's more of like the chest out, like ready to fight, ready to run, kind of activated energy.
Yes.
And then ventral vagal is that I am blissed out state, heart open, which is similar to the fight or flight in that it's like activating.
Okay.
But it's more of like the blissed out, like a calm activation is how I would describe it.
Okay.
Yes. And again, I'm not an expert, but that's my current perception of that. And so I think people, they get really stuck, and one's not greater than the other, because if we're trying to run from a bear, or an example that was, if, you know, you're driving on a motorcycle and you lose control, the last thing you want to be is in this blissed out, Jesus take the wheel, calm sort of state,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
You want to be focused and you want to be ready to go. But then on the other hand, when you're trying to relax and go to sleep at night or connect with family, connect with loved ones, you don't want to be in that activated, charged up, like fighting space, you know?
Right.
Unless you're, I don't know, playing football or something. I don't know. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that, like for the listeners, that it's not bad to be in fight or flight, which I think so much of society views it.
I would agree.
It's just, what do you actually need in this moment? You know, like, are you stuck there? You can also get stuck in the parasympathetic, in that resting too, which can show up as not being able to make a decision, feeling like, you know, you make everyone else make the decision. You're kind of floating around all the time. Like, so there's definitely, we can get stuck, and it's not about constantly calming the nervous system, but again, bringing it back to that adaptability. How much ease do you have when it comes to being able to flow from state to state? If you have a really busy day and you're in that, you know, sympathetic fight or flight, activated action sort of energy all day, do you have a hard time coming at home and then getting into that rest and digest and calm? You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you get stuck there essentially? And so learning the strategies to not hold on to that stuff, but to be able to be there and then go do something else when the time comes. Yeah.
Because really it doesn't serve our minds or our bodies to stay in that like tense energy place.
Totally.
Like, it's not serving you, especially when you go home. You should be able to, you know, let your hair down and relax a little bit. But like you said, you're holding on to that. So a lot of what you do is kind of like training the body. Is that what you would say?
Yep.
To, like you said, adapt more easily. And okay. That's fascinating. Yeah.
Yes. So
I like that.
Move through. And another piece too, we had talked about the storing of experiences. If we can't process them. And the reason that's so important is because, you know, we don't just store them, but because it's stored in the nervous system, it's almost like we're putting on a pair of glasses. So like, let's say clear vision is, you know, no glasses. And that's actually our truest, authentic form where we're just expressing. But then we have these things that happen where we didn't have the strategies to process. So we store it and then we put on a pair of glasses that tells us I'm not good enough. Or we put on the pair of glasses that says girls are mean, you know? You know, that's, So when we go through and we learn those strategies to process that experience that was difficult for us to process, we can take those glasses off, you know? And it makes me think, like, one huge one for me was, like, girls are mean. Yeah. You know? Because
we're told that as young girls. Yeah.
Totally. And just there's the sisterhood wound and just bullying.
Yes.
And I was bullied in my 6th grade year. Like,
same. Yeah.
Yes. And it's so hard. And I feel like, you know, my mom, I remember she sat with me in my bed for like weeks as I just cried and listened to John Mayer. And I was like, why does this suck so much? And eventually, like a year or two later, I went from feeling like the victim and kind of put on a fuck it mentality. Like, I don't need you.
Yes.
Which is also a form of like isolation and shutting down. Like, I don't need anyone now. Now I'm hyper resilient and or hyper independent. And so for me, learning that I had those glasses on, because it was also preventing me from having meaningful relationships with women.
Yeah. Yes.
It wasn't until a few years ago I was at an all women's chiropractic retreat. And there was not an ounce of jealousy,
or competing,
no cattiness. Like, it was all love.
Beautiful.
And I was like, holy shit, what is this?
Yes.
This is what it's like.
Right.
Like, I can have, like, nice relationships with women and it's not gonna, you know.
Right. We're not competing. We're not trying to one-up each other. That's why I feel like our female entrepreneur group is so powerful because we're all there just to build each other up and encourage each other to be successful. Like we literally we're cheerleaders for each other.
Yes.
And I think that's why we leave. I always leave just feeling so empowered.
Same.
It's just a high energy. Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
It's funny how you do have to like almost like retrain your brain though, as a grown woman to, okay, it's not me versus you or me against you. We're all here on this earth to serve people in different ways. And it's okay. And there's plenty of people to go around and there's plenty of,
you know,
none of that like lack mindset.
Totally. Yeah. And we're here for community and collaboration. You know, like that's what life is about. And I have to remind myself that sometimes when it comes to asking for help or feeling like I have to do these big grand ideas on my own, you know, I think we all can relate to that on some level.
Absolutely. Everything that you are talking about it just really like is fascinating to me. With your business, which for those of you that don't know, so Zoe is the owner and sole practitioner of Tuch 22, correct? Yep, and she's actually housed in Dubuque, Iowa, if you're a local listener. Is there anything like in the near future, any opportunities, any ideas for growth, anything that you're thinking down the road that you want listeners to be aware of?
So right now my main focus is community. And my goal is to do at least one community outreach thing each month.
Awesome.
So like last month I did a nervous system workship with V1 Yoga.
Yeah, I saw that on Instagram. Yes.
I'm doing another one this month. It was super fun. I also did a Eclipse Festival this past weekend and just set my table up and like just, you know, serve some people there.
What a neat way to serve your community.
Thanks. It's just so fun. And yeah, so that's, I guess, my current goals that are like right in front of me. But I do feel called to just share my overarching, like huge life goal because I have no idea how I'm going to get there, but I feel like the more I talk about it, the more it will happen.
Yeah.
So Tuch 22, just the idea for this came a couple of years ago. I think it was like 2021. I was at a chiropractic conference called Mile High. And it's basically this big weekend long conference where all of these chiropractors go. We just nerd out on chiropractic philosophy and just fire each other up about serving humanity. And there's all these speakers and people have their tables out and it's just super fun. So I was there as the first and only one that I've been to. And there was a doc that was talking and she is a powerhouse woman, like straight up. Cool. She's who I want to be when I grow up. No, she's super inspiring though. And so she was talking and I've seen her talk a couple times and I can't even remember the exact content that she was talking about, but it was essentially this very motivating, like, what are you here to do speech. And I went to the bathroom afterwards and literally put my hands up in the air. I get emotional every time I tell this story. And I was like, all right, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to serve. How do you need me? What do you need me to do? Like, I am here.
Wow.
And an hour later, like, just all these ideas came flooding in. Like, I took a piece of paper. I think I still have it. It was like the back of the schedule or something. Went outside and was furiously writing for like an hour.
Wow.
And at first, none of it really made sense. But it's like I was just writing it down. And then as I was writing more down, it just started coming together. And so I love angel numbers. I love repeating numbers. Yep. 2 is the number of alignment. And so I was like 22, like Tuch 22 because the gentle touches and all this stuff. Yeah, so like even the name. So the name Tuch 22 has no O in it because BJ Palmer, who was the developer of chiropractic, he's the son of the founder. He was super quirky and just like one of those like mad genius sort of guys. And felt like it was a waste of time to write those extra letters. So he just said, screw it. I'm not going to do that because he is too busy and on such a purpose that I'm going to spell phonetically because
Yeah.
So Tuch 22 TUCH was a like little homage to him.
That's so cool.
And then the number 22, if you flip the first one over, it looks like a heart.
Yeah.
And it also looks like a swan. And I forget, there was some spiritual symbolism for a swan, which I'm blanking on right now. But I also loved the idea of the mirrored 22 like that, because that's really all I am. I'm not doing anything. I'm just a mirror, and we're all just mirrors for each other.
Absolutely, I agree. I tell clients that a lot.
Yes, so I was like, okay, perfect. There's that. And then Tuch 22, if you take the 3 T's, there's the 3 T's of chiropractic, which is thoughts, traumas, and toxins, which is how our nervous system becomes subluxated.
Yes.
Is the word I want to use. I was debating on if I wanted to like talk about what a subluxation was or not. But subluxation is essentially a decreased like ability to live. Like it's a diminished state of being. There we go.
Okay.
Like where is the word? Yes. So that's how it happens through thoughts, through everything that we tell ourselves, that we hear, through traumas that happen, like physical traumas, emotional, and through toxins, things that we eat, the air that we breathe,
our environment.
Our environment, totally. So those 3 T's of chiropractic is what.
And you worked that into, that's so cool, into your name.
But that's the crazy thing is I didn't even consciously do that. I was just writing it all down.
It was just
and then it just started like, yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yes.
So cool.
I love creating meaning too. Mm-hmm. So as I was just like writing it all down, it just kind of started happening. And then, so the name Tuch 22 is the antonym to catch 22, because a catch 22 is an impossible situation. Like no matter what you do, you're just stuck. But with Network Spinal, and I think just chiropractic in general, it's like the sky really is the limit. We are increasing these people's ability to live life and reach their fullest potential, live an optimal life. So to me, Tuch 22 is the antonym to that. It's like endless possibility. Catch 22 is there's no possibility, no matter what you choose. And then Tuch 22 is endless possibility.
That's a really cool. There's so many cool things that are worked into your LLC name. Like, that's so powerful.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's,
that whole moment.
It all came downloading in, and it was initially meant to be a nonprofit.
Okay.
And I still would like to do that at some point. I just don't have enough clarity.
Sure.
To take action, but my
baby steps.
Yes, so I kind of made it into like God told me that this was a nonprofit, and he wrote it all out, and all the ideas for the nonprofit were coming through because essentially I want to make chiropractic more available to lower socioeconomic communities and people that really could benefit from healing. I mean, we could all benefit from healing. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not here to like shit on different chiropractic models, but for me, it is, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's one path to open up a chiropractic facility and charge $90 an adjustment and become rich and live this awesome life. And that's fine. But there's a part of me that just feels like, okay, but I feel like we're leaving people behind. Like, I feel like there are people that are so stuck and we're born in to a situation that is so hard to get out of.
Yeah.
And sure, it might be easy for us to say like, oh, well, if they saw the value in this, then they would pay it, or like they would make it happen or whatever. There's all these like, there's all these reasons that people use. But for me personally, there's just something about it that just doesn't sit well with me.
Sure.
I don't want to only help people who can afford it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful concept. Yeah.
But it's a tricky game because there's also like, okay, well, just how do we do that then? How do we reach these people? And how do we, some people don't want to heal. That's another thing. Some people really don't want to heal, but that doesn't mean that everyone is on that page.
Yes.
There are people who want to heal and are willing to do the work, but just don't have the funds, don't have access to it.
Yes.
So Tuch 22 really was born to be a nonprofit that initially it's like you go to markets around the country or the globe eventually and just serve people at a donation-based level. And then the money that gets funneled into it goes back to help pay for individuals' ongoing care.
That's amazing. Very cool. Yeah.
Especially because there's a lot of chiropractors that don't accept insurance, myself included, for many different reasons. Yep. And I feel like there needs to be a way to, make sure that the chiropractor is getting paid, because that's also important.
It is.
For a long time, I devalued myself because my own self-worth, thinking, almost like I'll be the martyr. Yeah. But that's not okay either. There's value and we deserve to get paid, and everybody... Yes. And, people deserve access to. So finding that balance, finding what that looks like. So
very cool.
That's my overarching goal.
That is so exciting, Zoe. I love that. So both, that's like a business goal, and personally, like that's where you want to see Tuch 22 expand to down the road.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want listeners to know before we wrap things up?
Yeah, if there's one thing that I would love for people to take away, is that where you are right now is exactly where you're meant to be. And that might seem eye-rolly or like cliche, but it's so true. And to really just give yourself grace. Give yourself so much grace and compassion. I feel like it's so easy to, want to read all the self-help books and do all the things to make yourself better. It's constantly trying to find ways that we need to change to deem ourselves worthy or to deem ourselves, whatever. But I think the biggest thing is to just honor where you're at truly. Don't shame yourself for being where you're at. And if you do feel shame, like, okay, cool, that's fine too. Like learning how to love yourself.
Like you love your best friend.
Exactly. And how to do that, just start where you are. Start with telling yourself, if you don't know how, like, okay, I'm learning to love you.
Yes.
Feel the sensation in your body.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is super uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with this. I'm learning how to love you. I see you. And give yourself grace. Like there will be moments where you're going to want to dissociate or escape. And that's okay too. But just give yourself grace.
That is such a perfect last piece of advice to give our listeners. So what I'm doing with my collabs is we're going to end each collab episode with some just rapid fire questions. And just full transparency, listeners, I did not give these to Zoe beforehand. So just like first thing that comes to you, just go ahead and share it. So first question, what's a book that you're currently reading?
Ooh, Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Ooh,
it is so good.
Okay.
So good. Okay. Yes.
Love it. What's one thing you can't live without right now?
Crocheting. Oh my gosh.
Awesome. I love that. Oh yeah. And she's making her own wedding dress. When you said crocheting, that made me think about that. Yeah, if you don't, I'll put all of her information in the show notes, but if you don't follow her, you should, so you can see how this dress turns out. It's fascinating. What is your current go-to podcast, if there is one?
Go-to podcast. I've been listening to Coffee with the Girls. A friend of mine just started this a few weeks ago, actually, so I've been listening to that like each week when it comes out. Yeah,
Coffee with the Girls. Okay, cool. What is one song you have to sing along to whenever it comes on?
The song that comes to mind is Forget Me Nots by Patrice Rushen, I think. That's just been my jam. Every Friday, my brother sent it to me last Friday, and I can't help but sing and dance to it.
I love that.
It's the best jam, especially on Friday.
I'm going to look it up. I love that. What's your favorite way to relax after a long day?
Just snuggle up with my dogs, crocheting on the couch.
Awesome. Zoe, it was so fun having you on today. I really think our listeners are going to get so much information from this. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to put her information in the show notes. I'll put her Instagram handle, website, anything that we mentioned today. I'll link that as well as the podcast that she mentioned. But if you have any questions or you want to know anything further, just DM her, add her on Instagram, reach out to her on her website. She truly is a wealth of knowledge, you guys. And I really don't think you will regret reaching out to her. I know I think like we're lucky to have her in our neck of the woods right now. So yeah, give her a follow, and thank you for coming on today. Thank you for being one of my first, and
so fun.
I can't thank you enough. So, all right, until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for listening to us. It means so much to me. If there were any aha moments or anything that really resonated with you on today's episode, then please take a minute and share it on your social media and tag me so I can personally thank you. Also, if you could, please rate and review the podcast, as it is new and that really helps to get the word out there more and reach even more listeners. I'll catch you on the next episode.